Hello, welcome to Mental Health Moments with Coach She. I am Coach She, also known as Shazetta Morris, with a plethora of titles and additional things that come with me. So glad to join you, or so glad to be with you tonight. This is a spontaneous conversation. And so there will be individuals that will be joining us live, and then there will be other individuals that will be watching the replay of this. Either way that you get this, I'm hopeful that this information will benefit you. Whenever you see this, I hope that you will either like it in real time, share it later on when you see the experience. I think we are across a couple of this information with, share this platform with, and so you always can get this connected to someone whom you feel will benefit from this particular experience. It's good to be with you all tonight. Thank you so much for joining this level of conversation. And so for those of you that will join us live, feel free to ask your questions in real time so that we can address them. Just wanted to have some thoughts around wanting to speak to some mental and emotional tips that lead into 2025. And as much as there is a lot of information that is out here just because, I actually just want to highlight two particular things and just drill down some information around those two things that I want to encourage everyone to focus on, right? Because our agendas will be different. 2025 will bring about a lot of different things. And one of the things that I want to be careful to encourage you always to do is not to spend a lot of time in worry and anxiety, right? There's a lot that comes with living in the earth, period. But there are certain things, certain struggles that come with living in certain areas. First world countries, which first world would be considered the United States, second world and third world. Second world, you know what? I've never really highlighted second world countries. Third world, we have a lot of experience with, right? Individuals that come with spaces that come from war-torn spaces, maybe like Ecuador, Honduras, those particular areas that don't have. And when we talk about first, second, and third world experiences, we're talking about economies, accesses, luxuries, stuff like that, systems that function at higher levels. It doesn't mean that individuals are minimized, although they can be treated as minimal individuals, right? It's not my goal to minimize anyone on this platform. So I just highlight that statement just to reference the distinction. But in our ability to live in this world, to live in this earth, there's a lot of things that come that cause us to have a lot of anxiety, have a lot of worry in different spaces, because life is something. Life can be a beast in and of itself. And I don't know about you, when I was a child, child, CHILD. When I was a child, I didn't worry about as many things. I worried about going to school. I worried about getting good grades. And if I didn't behave, I worried about my mom chastising me, right? When I look back on that, that was my world. And my world was limited to those spaces. And so those things felt like big deals. Uh, but today, I recognize that at this stage of my life, that there's a lot more that comes with just those particular things. As you grow, as you experience life, you will have different expectations, things that hit you, curveballs that come at you, a lot of things. And this year, our experience right now is no different. Our experience right now is no different. There are expectations that people had about 2024. They're trying to have certain expectations for 2025 and beyond. Uh, the political climate is based off of how you believe, and what you believe can be uncertain for many people, and those are a lot of fears. We're having a lot of individuals, or I'm watching other people experience a lot of death and loss, grief in many different areas, from people loss, job loss, housing loss of living, not being able to just pay their everyday bills. There's a lot that comes with the dynamics of just living life. And so let me acknowledge that. For some people, you could say, just live your life. And there will be people in their minds, they may not ever say it, but they'll be thinking, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get to a life that I can be pleased with. And that could be some people's thought for many different reasons. It can be based off of how you see life, what you have been told life was supposed to be. If you've ever really analyzed life for yourself, there's a whole bunch of reasons why we can have that thought of not knowing how to come to experience and live life. And so it can be challenging. So I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that the world right now is challenging and life can be challenging. So just wanted to kind of put some things together just to encourage you with, as it relates to how you experience going into your next year, 2024 into 2025. That is a calendar year. Some people from Jewish descent have a different kind of experience in their year. I hear myself in the background, and so that means that somebody is sitting outside of my door listening to me. Yeah. And if they are, I want them to turn that volume down so I'm not bouncing around myself. Thank you so much for listening to me, though. Yes. So for us, it's a new calendar year. For others, they've entered their year in September. According to Jewish calendar, we have different types of calendars that go on with individuals. And so that's fine. I'm talking about the 2024-2025 crossover experience for those that are looking to have different experiences, and maybe what you can consider preparing for. This is not a typical talk about, you know, drawing and balling and grabbing all of your income and all of that. No, it will be inclusive of that if you really, really pay attention. What I want to encourage you to do is I want you to consider becoming a more thoughtful person, a thinking being. I want you to consider how much more you need to engage your thinking spaces so that you can make better decisions about what your life is supposed to be, how you want to experience life from your narration, from your ability or your reference and your perspective. I want you to consider becoming more thoughtful, thinking, not thoughtful as in thinking of others, but you becoming a more thinking creature, thinking being. The reason why I say this, and I'm going to hit some slides here so that you can see it. The reason why I want to encourage you to be a more thinking person is because today we are experiencing such a fast-paced society. The environment is fastly moving. It's what I call the ADHD society, right? Things are moving at such a fast pace, and everybody doesn't know how to organize this fast pace. They don't know how to organize all of this movement. It moves quickly. If we're visual learners, we like new things, we like shiny things, we like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? Instead of really understanding that we could see what's next and still experience what's now. A lot of times people don't know how to organize that. And so, what we call that in a clinical setting, when individuals don't have the ability to focus past 5 minutes, we call that attention deficit. It seems like a lot of our society is living in that space. And when you tell somebody to slow down, or when you suggest that they slow down, they don't know what that means. Or one of the first responses they have is that I can't slow down. I have so much to do. In that space, most times people are moving without thinking. They're doing without thinking. And then 10 years go by, and now you get to think back on what you've done. And it could have been great, successful, and good, but you didn't have any present day value in it. You didn't stop to smell the roses of your experience, or you didn't slow down enough to have benefit towards what it is that you accomplished. And so I want to encourage you to stop and think, stop and process, stop and consider. Maybe I'll change the topic of this particular chat with Coach She to take a pause with Coach She, or slow down with Coach She, or just slow down. Let's breathe a minute. Let's chill and kind of think, because even with all of the busyness that we have, I promise that if you slow down and let your brain recover, you will get more done on a rested brain than you would if you were just functioning on an exhausted brain. You deserve rest. You deserve an opportunity to slow down, right? So I want to encourage you to be thinking people. But the two things that I thought about as it related to things that you can kind of, just suggestions. There's no, you have to do this. It's all up to you. Just suggestions about things that you need to consider in your mental and emotional state as you move into 2025. There's a lot of things that's going to be moving around us. There's a lot of things that's going to be shifting around us. But two things that I want you to consider as we move into this space. So follow me. I'm going to put some slides up so that you can see. And then you can make some considerations as it relates to how you feel about the information that is coming about. Do me a favor. Let me know where you're joining us from. Like and share this, send it out to other individuals so that they can experience it. And feel free to post your questions. I would love to see what your thoughts are, or if you have any questions or comments as it relates to this information. So, the one thing that I want you to consider experiencing or working on is your ability to have independence. Now, you're probably saying, Coach C, I thought you was going to tell us to work on putting our money in some stocks and bonds. Well, I hope you have a financial advisor for that. That's not me today. I want you to work on developing your sense of independence. And I'm going to explain both. I'm going to explain this piece and then the next piece to you in just a few moments, understanding why it's going to be important for you to do this. Number one, you need to learn how to be okay with yourself. This has been a year, 2024, and it may be several years that people have really had a struggle with understanding the differences or the shifts in relationships that have been taking place. There's been so much diversity in the backdrops of individuals, right? And from a clinical perspective, I understand that personalities have shifted in ways that I did not acknowledge when I was younger, right? I grew up in a space where socialism or social activity was a big deal. And for me, social activity took I had so much social activity in church environments. So school and church were the spaces where I learned how to be with other people. And if there was any difference in the room, I didn't see it. We were all either getting educated or we were all getting closer to God. That was how that looked, right? But then as time moved on, And we started to see people having social awkwardness, social anxieties. Individuals struggled with being outdoors. They started going inward. Then, of course, the pandemic happened and people started to have anxiety as it related to re entering what we classified as normal social engagements. That shift created a lot of awareness about the discomfort that people had with just being with, or rather within themselves. And the reason why that can be problematic is because there is a part of you that has to have external engagement, and there's a part of you that has to learn how to live within yourself and be comfortable in that space. Independence is a healthy space for every person to ascribe to. Now, you learning how to be okay with yourself can be, predicated on some of your backdrop. Why? Because trauma can impede, right? It can interrupt how we experience ourselves when we have had traumatic experiences, and that traumatic experience interrupts how we think about ourselves. And oftentimes we don't like to linger with ourselves. Religious backdrops, religious understandings that can be traumatic, can cause us to struggle with us being okay with being ourselves, with being by ourselves. We've learned the jargon of, being alone is different from being lonely. However you slice it, it's still you being with you. And so sometimes people don't enjoy spending time with themselves. They've never been trained to understand the different complexities that come with being with themselves. But the one thing that you're going to have to learn how to be secure in is learning how to be okay with you. Your ability to be able to receive diversity and difference and engage other individuals will be healthier when you are okay with being with you, right? So that's number one. You got to learn how to be okay with yourself under this umbrella of independence. People's opinions, their thoughts, their ideas, their narrations about you will change with the shifting of the wind. Don't be surprised by that. Don't even allow yourself to be moved by that. Learn how to be okay with you. Self-fulfillment, self-esteem, a great sense of self makes you healthy to engage other individuals and to have other individuals engage you. Okay, so building your independence by number one, learning how to be okay with yourself will be paramount. Number two, you get to align yourself with your spiritual center, your sense of being, self of existence. The reason why I'm talking about spiritual centering is because everybody does not ascribe to a God space, but they ascribe to a spiritual centering. And that's important. However, you align within to that foundation that you speak to or that calls out to you, make sure that you are centered in that space, because a great part of you learning about yourself is about learning about your foundational internal spiritual existence, right? So those things go hand in hand, they're coupled with each other, right? And so independently, you have to be able to shape that space for yourself. Now, most times I grew up again in a church environment. I was infused in the space that my mother was infused in and that her mother was infused in, and so forth and so on. It wasn't bad for me. It's just how it went. But after a while, as I grew in my own grace and in my own relationship with God, I had to have a separate revelation of God that had nothing to do with my mother, nothing to do with my grandmother. I had to have my own experience. And once I got solid in that experience, some of the rituals of what my mother did or what my grandmother did fell off of me, because I recognized that for me, it wasn't necessary. So in that independent space, I started to understand and learn how important it was for me to be okay with myself by number two, grounding myself in what I actually truly believed and living from that space Okay. And then the next thing, the number three, is activate your internal awareness and your own relevance. You get the opportunity to be able to say, this is who I am, and this is how I show up in the world. This is who I am, and this is how I show up in the world. Again, it's grounded on the space of you learning how to be okay with yourself, accepting yourself, understanding your difference, understanding your diversity, being okay with you, because you will wait for other people to be okay with you, and then you'll start to assimilate to their measurement of you. And when they stop liking you, then your sense of self is completely thrown off. You don't want that. Learn how to be okay with you. You learning how to be okay with you is you spending time learning about you. So you get to align yourself with your spiritual center, whatever grounds you, whatever develops you. For me, it is that God space. It's always been. That's how I ascribe and align. However you ascribe and align, it's going to be important that you center yourself in that space. Make changes if you need to change, but center yourself in that space. And then you get to activate your internal awareness. I know what I know about me. That's not arrogant. It's just that I've lived long enough with myself. I've spent enough time discovering myself, and I'm still discovering myself. So I keep learning about myself. You know what this does for me? In a nutshell, this slide right here, it just shows me immediately that I need to turn my attention away from all of the stuff that becomes so distracting, that's so engaging, that is so funny, that is so childish, and you see what happened here and you see what happened there. While that will always get your attention, there is something else that requires more attention, which is you. If you're not going to be tossed with every wind, if you're not going to be thrown away with everybody's opinions, you're going to have to learn how to develop your independence and your sense of self. I hope somebody hears me. I hope that you understand that you were never supposed to be a carbon copy of anybody else. You are not supposed to be those versions that people just ascribe to you. There's got to be a place where we arrive and we say, that when we hear somebody give us a compliment, when we hear somebody affirm something, when we hear somebody even give us a prophetic word, when we hear somebody speak to our potential, that we have already borne witness to it before the words come from an external source. You've got to learn how to be okay with yourself. Align yourself with your spiritual center, and then you get the ability from a holistic place to activate your internal awareness and your own relevance. So focus on that and take these notes and let them help you, right? Then the next thing that I want you to do, which will be the last thing here, is as we develop independence, I want you to work on then interdependence. These two pieces go hand in hand. Developing your independence and developing a sense of interdependence. You'll recognize that in changing times and in changing dynamics in this world system, there are some things that you're going to have to rely on yourself to create for yourself. You're going to have to make sure that you can make money. You're going to have to make sure that you bring forth witty inventions and creative gifts that God has already put on the inside of us and is just waiting for us to establish and develop. You're going to have to be okay with not having everybody's affirmation over your life in your ear. Sometimes you will have the greatest mentors. You will have the greatest individuals that will walk with you. But then there will be seasons that people will not walk with you, and you will have to be okay in and within yourself. When you get from that space of independence, then you know how to healthily exchange or work through interdependence. Because in this society that we're living in today, you're going to have to know who is with you, right? And I want to highlight this particular word called mutuality. Mutuality is important because we are now we're now spending time. We waste one of the greatest currencies that has ever that is in the earth today that I don't think that people recognize, and it is mutuality. It is the energy of giving and receiving, the law of sowing and reaping. We only ascribe that to money or things that are material, but you also have to ascribe it to the energy that you give in relationship and make sure that that is flowing in a mutual aspect to and from you. If you want your battery to continue to be charged, you need to be in relationships that are mutual for you in order to be socially healthy. Right. So, in that interdependence, you have to work on building a mutual community for yourself. Working on that, doing that for yourself, it becomes vital. Building a mutual community. What does that look like? Building a space for you or amongst other individuals where we work in common. We do not have to be the same, but we work in common in order to be successful. That can be in family, that can be in friendship groups, that can be in church social groups, it can be in businesses or organizations, it can be in meetups, it can be in whatever type of group that you develop. It has to be, it should be, you should look for mutuality, because when you are constantly giving, 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 and it is not giving back to you, then you end up being exhausted, bitter, and resentful. And that creates a whole nother issue that you now have to live with in your inner self, right? Those spaces and those engagements, those opportunities or lack of mutuality can create a whole other level of traumas that you live with and then share with other individuals unintentionally. So as you work on having a healthy independence, you can then move into having a healthy interdependence. So you build mutual community, mutual relationships. You should expect to give as you receive. You should expect it. Listen, there's a lot of times that individuals are struggling in relationships because they're saying, I'm giving, I'm giving, I'm giving. Someone in our local community, in our spiritual community, developed the shirt, and I need to have one, right? And it said matching your energy. Somebody else may have said it somewhere in the earth, I don't know, but in this space they made the statement, I'm matching God's energy. Well, matching God's energy is going to be very difficult, right? Because it's expansive. You'll be moving, you'll have a version of that experience, but he's always moving, shifting, shaping. The universe is always in this space of creation and morphing, right? And so oftentimes we'll use that, right? But then we don't think we have this relationship, right? We can honor that very easily, but we don't honor this relationship that is right amongst us. That's right, relational, that's parallel, right? I hope I said that right. That relationship going up is horizontal, no, vertical. There it is, vertical. And then we have these horizontal relationships amongst each other, but we neglect the ones that are right around us. And we focus on this one, and we're still off balance because we're supposed to have the combination of both God's self and other selves. Okay, God's self and other selves, right? It's God, you, your neighbor. God's self and other selves. You got to really spend time with thinking about that independent space that is healthy. Because again, when you don't have a healthy independence, you can have codependency. You can be driven to be in relationship with people just because you don't want to be by yourself. That's not healthy. You can be driven to be in relationships with people because you've been abandoned before. That's not healthy. You have to walk through the pain of the traumatic experiences that will help you get to healthy spaces. And when you get to a healthy sense of independence, being able to be okay with yourself, being able to do if you have to do it by yourself. I'm not saying that you should not be with people. You absolutely should. But you have to also be okay if they're not around. That's a healthy independence. Interdependence, we're building mutuality, right? We build mutual community, right? And it will be vital to you. You should be able to give and receive, give and receive, give and receive. That experience should be circular. You should have an expectation of the giving even if the giving doesn't look like what you want to receive, because you might need to give something that they need to receive, and they may give you something back that'll be different than what you've given. Either way, we can classify what mutuality is. I am full in my relationship with you. I am complete in my relationship with you. Not complete that you complete me, no, but I have the expression of feeling full in my relationship with you. We should have that mutual community experience, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you make sure that you build your networks, right? As you're building a healthy independence, you move from independence to interdependence. Mutual community, number one, build your networks, right? So that you can know where your resources are. We're living in a society right now that there are things that people are accessing that are not traditional. And I think that there's a reason why we're having different experiences as it relates to that. The job market is looking different. There are people that are more entrepreneurial, and now that mindset is breaking off of people, that you have to be at an environment for 30 or 40 years in order to have success or to declare yourself successful. It's not the same anymore. We don't have the same kind of experiences or expectations anymore. So a lot of times people are moving into entrepreneurial pursuits. They are starting businesses. Some people will never start businesses, and that's okay. If you're called to start a business, drop a patent, have witty inventions, drop an activity or an idea, people are more prone now to engage in those experiences. In those cases, because things are changing and you cannot rely on companies to do what they have done before, you'll have to build networks, connections with different individuals, whether that is personal or professional or both, that you can grab resources from, and then you can supply resources too. That's how we have healthy mutual community. And we have those things in levels. Now you get to determine what level or what connection you have with individuals. Most times when we look at it, the nuclear family is a level of mutual community and connection. Back in the day, when our grandparents lived around and Big Mama was around and the aunts and cousins were around, we had at least 3 or 4 levels of networks. If Mama wasn't home, we could go to the next level of community or network and get to grandmama. If grandmama wasn't around, we could get to great aunts. We could get to family that was always around, right? So you just got to know where you can get to, where you can go to get different things that you need, because traditional accesses are changing. Listen, and you don't want to be caught off guard with all of the things that are changing and then be stuck in this non-changing mindset. Things are changing, and you've got to be okay with the change. You've got to learn how to adjust with it. And so for those of you that have, struggles with change, or even diagnoses that cause you to struggle with change, I encourage you, even implore you, to start getting to work with someone who could help you with your resistance in some areas, because you're going to have a harder time as the world moves forward and as the years move forward. You're going to have a harder time going with the flow if you're struggling with a non-changing mindset, right? That struggle will continue to grow as you continue to grow older if you don't adjust yourself now. And 2025 is going to come with a lot of different changes. 2026 is coming with a lot of different changes. 2030 is coming with a lot of different changes. We're not even really prepared. There are certain systems watch this, we can be living in 3 different systems. I can work in one system, do my worship in another system, and in my house have a different kind of system, right? And all of those systems I could watch in the clinical mental health space. They're already preparing us for the pandemic of mental health that is taking place amongst us right now, and with the things to come, the onslaught of that, and we're recognizing that. But I could still be in a worship space, and the worship experience or the church place will not be prepared for what is coming in the next 5 years. In my family, we could be halfway in the middle of preparation, right? I'm sending this alarm out to many of us who struggle with the ability to change and be flexible and moving forward. Listen to me. If you've never heard me, there are things coming down the pipe that is going to challenge your stability. And so you working on knowing about you working on investing in you working on being okay with you. And that allows you to lead into this interdependence or interconnectedness space with solid community, solid networks is going to be important for you. Right? The last thing that we do in this interdependent space is we strengthen those spaces that strengthen you. Listen, too long have we invested in spaces that don't immediately serve our purpose, right? And so you've got to really consider politically what is serving you, socially what is serving you, spiritually what is serving you, economically what is serving you. You've got to consider those spaces that are serving you and strengthen those spaces that are strengthening you. Why? Because you have to live. Your battery has got to be charged and recharged. You have to receive back in some form energy that you give, because when you do not, bitterness, resentment, lack, all of those things become etched in your mindset. And that's where you begin to struggle. It is okay for you to renegotiate the terms of your relationships. It is okay. And it is smart for you to renegotiate the terms of your relationships, your networks, your connections, where you work, where you live, if you need to. It's smart for you to do that. Why? Because you have to live. If you've got people attached to you, it is smart for you to renegotiate those spaces, especially if you are in headships in your family, leadership spaces in your organizations. You've got your business, you're developing or leading your businesses. It is smart for you to renegotiate those spaces, because as you continue to grow and evolve, your connections, hopefully they will. And if they don't, you're going to have to make some decisions about what you will now be connected to in your present and in your future. You build your independence. You build a healthier sense of yourself. You know what it is that you can do. You spend time in your own mirror, looking at what it is that you can do, learning to be okay with yourself, learning how to build yourself up on your most holy faith. Your holy faith is not the scriptures. Your holy faith is your sense of who you are. You get to build yourself up in that space so that you can be confident as a person that can be okay with or without other people. Hear what I'm saying? Because I am not suggesting that you should be alone or be without other individuals. I am suggesting that you will be okay if people are around or they are not. So remember that I said that. And then when you build a healthy sense of independence, you can really negotiate your interdependence by building mutual community, by building your networks, by strengthening those spaces that strengthen you. And I really want to harp on this space, and then I'm going to close after that, right? Strengthening those spaces that strengthen you is really going to be key in this phase of your experience. Strengthening the spaces that strengthen you. There's a lot of manipulation that goes on in different systems for myriad of reasons. Sometimes there's manipulation because the system has just set up to be that way. Sometimes there's manipulation because somebody feels like they have to be superior to another person. Sometimes there's manipulation because jobs feel like, oh, okay, well, you have to work here, otherwise you're going to lose it all. There are all kinds of reasons that people can subtly manipulate. That's why you've got to learn you. You've got to learn your skill set. You've got to learn your value. You've got to know what you bring to the table. That's not an arrogant thing. That is a confident self learning or having a greater sense of self. It would be wise for you to do that. As a mental health therapist, I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to know the fullness of what God has placed in you and learn how to maximize that. Because in a world where you may not know everybody or understand everybody, and watch this, not even be able to discern everybody, you've got to be able to know you. So bring your distraction level back. Come on, refocus your agenda. Make sure that you are included in the equation of your success. God, self, and other self. God, self, and other self. Who's the other selves? Other people that you are committed and called to, that are committed and called to you. 2025 is going to lead us into a whole bunch of hills and valleys, and it's supposed to. They lead us into a whole bunch of hills and valleys, economically, politically, socially, religiously. From an employment perspective, from a relational perspective, it's going to lead us into a whole bunch of hills and valleys. Let me qualify that statement by saying this: the pandemic did something that people never expected. It showed people that they did not really like each other. When we were called to stay in the house together, it proved who really was in love and who was not. I don't think people expected it. It proved how much our children needed their outside connections and who did not. It proved a lot about our human condition. And if we were really paying attention, it spoke to us about our needs, some of the things that we discount. Our isolation is not independence. Our isolation in most cases can be protection because we've had a trauma that makes us not trust anybody. That's not healthy either. There's a lot of unhealthiness that we live in that keeps building the dissonance that we live in the earth today. And I want to challenge you to consider that instead of just living in that space, that you consider seeking assistance in support of you building a healthy sense of yourself that creates healthy independence, and having someone help support your ability to have a healthy sense of interdependence, independence and interdependence, right? Because we're going to need each other. We're going to need each other, and we're going to need the people that show up in our lives to be healthy versions of themselves. Now, healthy is not perfect. Healthy is aware. Can I speak to that word a second? Awareness, perfection keeps us dotting I's and crossing T's. You will never be fully perfect. You will be fully mature because you are that. But you will not be perfect. You will make mistakes. And you can recover from any mistake that you make. I'm a witness. I believe it. Now the recovery may look different, but you can recover. But you have to be aware. Awareness is the maturity factor that I don't think that a lot of people like to live in, but we need to. That awareness about, listen, I might be book smart. That's the word. Thank you, Lord. I might be book smart, but I may not be consciously aware of my surroundings. And that's personally me. So a lot of times I know I need my husband to be with me because I am a brain with book knowledge. I can study, I can articulate, I can put information into practice, right? But that awareness, I will walk down the street and not look around me. I've gotten better as I've gotten older because I've had to build that space. But for me, if I have somebody around me who I know has my back and my front and all of that, I'm good. So then I don't have to concentrate on that as much, right? So I'm aware of that weaker part of myself. But that weaker part of myself does not make me weak. It just makes me aware. And sometimes we are so afraid to acknowledge those weaker areas because we feel like it says something about us. But all of us in human condition have a weaker space that we need somebody to help watch with us in and for. Your independence, a healthy sense of independence, means that you will learn to live in a space of awareness. I'm aware that I may not do this well, but I can do this well. I'm aware that my strength is here and I don't have great strength in this other space. Awareness helps us to be able to understand how we can connect interdependently. Because typically, what I'm going to draw to is the areas that may not be the strongest areas for me. Listen to me. Can I tell you this? You don't want carbon copies of yourself. You will get bored with that community. That's why we have to appreciate diversity and difference. It's supposed to look different. And some of the challenges that we're going to have ending this 2024, moving into 2025, is that we are judging individuals because they are different from us. But you fail to recognize that in that difference, they may have a remedy for you that you need. Stop overlooking difference. Consider expanding yourself, because when you struggle with that, sometimes your struggle is about your own internal jealousy, which is an independence, which fits into that independence model, right? Having a good sense of self, learning to be okay with yourself. When I'm okay with me, I have no room for jealousy in any other sphere. I'm okay. Shazetta's fine. She's doing her work. She's doing what she does. She's doing it like she does it. I'll connect with those people that need whatever version of me that they need. I'm probably a puzzle piece in some area for someone, but it does not change who I am. I'm good with myself. And so when you're good with yourself, those lower level energies don't live. Jealousies, comparisons, competitions. Those spaces, we don't give them room to live. And right now, we can't afford for that to be our present future, because there's so much that is coming that we've got to contend with. So you've got to be good with yourself, a healthy sense of independence, a healthy sense of interdependence. Tiffany, I see you. Let me see your question here. How does navigating a manipulative system look like? It looks like the Matrix. It looks like the Matrix. It looks like you understanding that you've got to be in the world, but not of the world, according to what the scripture says. Now, some people have defined that to be, well, you don't do anything that the world does. That is not what that meant. It meant really being in spaces where you understand how to use what is necessary for you without being influenced or infused by it. That's what that meant. So we have looked at certain behaviors and said, okay, that's the world, that's the world, that's the world. All of it's the world. Jesus came into a world. The scriptures were written about a world. All of it is the world. We have our particular specific things that we want to highlight that look more like something versus something else. But all of it is you learn how to navigate a system based off of what it is. For instance, the education system. If you are working with your children in education systems and you know that there are things that are not up to par, you work the pieces that you need, right? You influence what you can, and then you be the core foundation teaching space for your children, um, as they need additions when the education system can't provide it. Meaning what? It means that you become the core foundational teacher, which was always supposed to be the case. And then you pull from the different pieces depending on what you need. In a working environment, you might work in a system that might be corrupt. You can choose to stay completely out of it. If you need a job, though, you might be in that system and say, okay, I need to work until such time. I may not believe or align with all of these practices or policies, but I need to accommodate my living in this moment. So I'm going to do this until such time as I can do something else. That is the navigation. Okay, you can be aware. And again, it goes back to that word awareness. I understand what I'm doing for a particular reason and for a particular season. And it doesn't challenge my integrity or my character. It just means that I've got to serve this thing for a purpose and a particular time. And then when that time is over, I am aware enough to know that it's time to move on, to do something different. Okay. And every one of us should understand that we are living in a knowledge-based system where there's so much knowledge in the earth today because of technology, right? Websites, internet access, all of that. There is information that is coming to us so fast that we're in an information overload. So the things that we used to be able to hide, the things that we used to be able to hide are no longer hidden. So people are getting information and making decisions. Don't be mad about the decisions that they're making based off of the information that they receive. They have a right to do that because they're building or establishing their independence. It's what you want, even if the system is challenged. While we are watching all of this unfold, Dr. Daniels, our spirit dad, used to talk about this often. Bishop Carlton Pearson used to say it a lot too. The universe is correcting itself. It is. The powers that be, the powers are returning back to the people. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing right now. So in the space of seeing that, you need to prepare yourself mentally and emotionally for your position and your part in that. What you've allowed people to make decisions for you about, you now need to be making those decisions for yourself. You need to get well versed in what is going on in the economy. You need to get well versed in what's going on in your investments. You need to become more versed in the educational systems and what is happening with our children. You need to become more versed in your religious understanding and your spiritual awakening. You need to become more versed for yourself and encourage your children to do the same. That's how we build healthy independence. And we allow people that are healthily independent to make healthy choices about their interdependence. That's what you want. You want that. You want healthy independence and healthy interdependence. And you're going to need it in these days that are coming. Yes, Jacquees, healthy is not perfect. Healthy is not perfect. We are perfectly flawed because we've got cracks and skimps and all of those things that come with us. We were not supposed to be carbon copies of other individuals. I hate the fact that we have weaponized our individuality as people hating on us. The reality is that we're not living in a hater nation. We're supposed to be appreciating difference. Our language has to change. You know, in olden shows and in olden days, right? They used to wash our mouths out with soap. We are using language that is not progressive. It is regressive. And we need to come away from that. That's the suggestion. Let me say that. We need to come away from this regressive idea that puts us in a space where we are adding more competition amongst ourselves. We use language that causes us not to be able to be interdependent with other people. And somewhere along the line, we've got to make the choice to change that. We should make the choice to change that. I don't know if we will. That will be up to you. But in these days ahead, the political systems, our governmental systems, if they haven't shown you so far, listen, you won't be able to depend on them like you thought that you could. So you're going to have to learn how to build in your own house, build in your own neighborhoods, build amongst your own communities. You're going to have to learn how to build that way. And that starts with healthy independence. And it will promote, hopefully, healthy interdependence. Yes, I see you again, Tiffany. Coach, you told me that awareness was my prescription. It is. Awareness can be painful, right? Awareness can be painful, but it is a cure to a lot of things. If you are accepting of yourself, when you become accepting of yourself, nobody else can ever hold you hostage to you or what you have done. You become accepting of yourself. I'm flawed and I messed up some things, and that's okay. That's what life is. Maybe it's me. I don't think that. I don't know if people often have a healthy reality of what life really is. Think about that. Answer that question. Do you have a healthy reality of what life really is? You need to answer that for yourself, because sometimes these things that we equate to God doing, or the devil doing, or the demigod, or whatever, some of these things that we equate to God allowing and the devil creating or allowing, is not real. The reality is that there is a life existence that we walk out, and it's blended. Some of our life, the consequences that we see in our future, have been based on choices that we've made in our past. And sometimes we don't like awareness because we got to look ourselves in the mirror and face those facts. It doesn't mean that we need to change them, but sometimes we just have to look at them and spend time in awareness so that we can see ourselves in the areas that are flawed and all. Right? If that's just who we are, let's just put it out on the table. And predominantly with this, let me say this to you as well. There are systems that have been created to make us feel bad about ourselves, but it is not the truth. We are created in the image and likeness of Godness. We were born into Godness. We, when we really think about it, when we come to healthy senses of self, healthy senses of interdependence, we'll start to recognize that who we are is really pretty dope. But we spend so much time on the unawareness that we can't appreciate even the goodness of our Godness. And it's created a dissonance in our brain. It's created this disconnection from who we are. So even when, I'm talking about this independence and this interdependence, it's really the strength of this conversation today. And I probably won't come back on in 2024. That's why I'm trying to get this out of the way, because I wanted to spend some time doing this. The strength of our independence and our interdependence, it's so powerful when we recognize the strength of who we are individually. And if there is an enemy that keeps us trapped up or tripped up, it's the enemy of keeping us from knowing who we are. That enemy is that enemy is a real beast, because most times when people come through our offices and people are struggling with some things, and there are some real significant issues that people have, you know what, the one thing that it has done, the traumas, the tragedies, the unaliving or suicide in this season, it has made people feel like they don't know who they are, or that they should hate themselves, or that they are no good. That enemy is doing its job in a healthy way. And in most spaces, I don't even think that people recognize that we are facilitating and promoting that continuously. And in order for us to change that, we have to be aware of it. We've got to be aware of it. Yeah, I am convinced too, Tiffany. A lot of my experiences or battles have not been with the devil. No, it has not. It's been with our inner self. It's been with our inner thoughts. It's been with how we think, the foundation of our thinking patterns. And some of the systems that we have come through and grown up in have not created healthy thinking patterns for us. They've given us certain solid foundations in particular areas. There was a rush to know God. There was a rush to know our family lineage. There was a rush to know good and bad behavior, but they never created this this healthy foundation for thinking, for processing, for decision making. The systems that we have lived in, grown up in, some people still live in and grow up in, is a system of fear. And as long as we keep that system alive, people will not think for themselves. They will respond based off of fear tactics. I personally want to change that. I don't want to be in fear. I don't want to be in fear of God. I don't want to be in fear of hell. I don't want to be in fear of heaven. That was not God's goal. No, it's not. It's not. It was never his goal. He wants us to have healthy relationship with him. He wants us to have healthy relationship with ourselves. He desires us to have healthy relationship with others. And so this was just this few minutes. I wasn't even expecting to be on here this long, but this was this few minutes to just kind of consider some of the things that we need to go in with. Mental, emotional tips that help us to navigate next year and the years to come. Because I promise you, if you don't spend more time on getting yourself firm, you're going to be shifted with everything that you see coming across that screen, coming across the TV screen, coming across the phone screen, coming across the iPad screen, coming across whatever screen that you watch daily. There are some people that got their phones taped, stapled, nailed to their hands. They won't move without it. I'm not saying that that's a good or bad thing. It's just that they can be motivated by the next best post or tagline or hashtag, whatever it is. Their life is solely influenced by this space. And I'm telling you that even that out of balance is not healthy. Have a healthy independence, a healthy sense of self. It leads us into having a healthy interdependence. Those two things, I promise you that you will have a greater experience in your life because you will firm up your foundation on what is true and what is pure. And you won't be tossed with everything that has taken place in this earth. It impacts you, yes. You need to be aware of it. Yes, just as much as you need to be aware of yourself. You need to be engaged in politics. It would serve you because you are part of this land. Don't stay out of the races because you feel God is in control. Listen, let's destroy that whole myth. God created this earth according to your scriptures, right? He created this earth and he left the governance of it up to us. It's an indictment for all of us who say that God is in control. He left you in control. Oh, Jesus passed the baton, people. And y'all keep trying to throw it back because you don't understand your responsibility as the new governors in the earth. Stop throwing that baton back. That's the reason why you should be involved in the economy and what's happening in the world systems and the US systems or wherever you live. That's the reason why you should be involved in the political systems. That's the reason why you should be involved in the educational systems. The scriptures say it, the kingdoms of this world will become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ. How is that going to happen? It's going to happen by infiltration. Who's going to infiltrate? It's going to be people. It's going to be us. He left us to govern this world. And the more we withdraw, The more we hide in our closets, the more all of this stuff seems to take place because we won't engage. That's a conversation for another day. In any case, develop a healthy sense of independence. Develop and connect a healthy sense of interdependence. And those two aspects, however you design that, however you see that, is going to take you a long way as you live in the days ahead. So I'm encouraged by you tonight. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. We will do more of these as time permits. I never commit to a particular moment just because I know I got a lot on my plate. I'm aware that I carry a lot of titles. I wear a lot of hats and I'm still in school. And so I try to pop on when I can. Those of you that work with me on a continuous basis, you know how to reach me. And it's on this website that's below on that ticker. So you always know how to get to me if you need me. I am in the clinical space, which means that I am hands-on working with people. And I love that work, that hands-on working with people. I love being in that space. And so that's what I'm doing. So you know how to find me. We are working in the therapeutic space. If you ever want to set up an appointment, please do so. Because we're in a system overhaul now and rates are changing January 1st. I'm excited. I want you to get in on the deals because there are certain deals that just will not be available anymore, but you have access to that. If you want to donate to CoachShe, we are connected to an organization that is a nonprofit, 501c3, tax exempt, tax deductible organization. All of your contributions can be tax deductible for you. We would love your assistance in helping us to continue to bring content to you. And so feel free to donate through Cash App at CoachShe. You can also do a Zelle contribution through the business number if you have it. I didn't put it up here. I don't know why I didn't think to do that, but I'll do that next time. But certainly we want to be able to bring you information from our lens of the clinical mental health emotional space and encourage you to keep moving forward because these times they are really interesting. Depending on your lens, you can call it wicked, or depending on your lens, you can call it promising. Whatever you call it, you need to be prepared for it. So start preparing yourself, mature yourself, be okay within yourself, and then look around at your circles and make sure that they are mutual. Even Publix, listen, Publix is a grocery store down here. It serves me and I serve it. We have a mutual relationship. I go in and I check out what I want. They have it available. I pick it up and I pay for it. That's a mutual relationship, right? It can be both personal and professional. Check out all of your spheres. I encourage you to do it. You have to think for yourself. Consider yourself. Then as you consider others, you can move forward. Yeah, I feel you. I'm staying on for a few more minutes because there are still people that are coming on with comments and thoughts. Here's another one from the YouTube side. I had to grieve family and societal expectations and norms to become healthy as a mama. Listen, Jacquees, that is such a powerful statement. You know why? Because there will be, and I'll say this to all of us who are watching this or who will watch this later, there will be things that people will not understand about what you need to do. We are easy to declare heresy. We are easy to declare that this is not how we do things. Well, statistically, most people would probably do things a certain way. Those are the statistics. That's what we do in statistics class. We register through research. We have a certain amount of numbers that would suggest that the majority of individuals will do a certain thing a certain way. What we are learning through current research that in this society, those numbers are shifting. And the shift is become there is because of the diversity that people are now catching up to understand. We're seeing the diversity in diagnosis, and we are now looking at that and saying, well, when did all of this happen? It was always happening. It was always happening. We've had different people, we've had diverse people. It was always happening, right? You know what tends to take place? We don't pay attention to things until it becomes predominant. I remember when our baby girl Kayla, she had the diagnosis of being on the spectrum, autism spectrum disorder. And the first question that we had, I think my family member said, where did this come from? Like, why is it all of a sudden that people are getting diagnosed with this? Because it felt like every time you turned around, somebody was getting this diagnosis. But the reality was, it's always been happening, but we had it labeled as something else, right? We had it labeled as this or labeled as that, and it wasn't predominant. When things become predominant is when people pay attention. Oh, Lord help us. The challenge that I have with that, Jacquees, and you probably already know it, but I'll share it with the rest of the world as well. The challenge that I have with that from a spiritual perspective is that there are things that God gives us insight to. There's a knowing in our inner self that knows things that we will never say. And then when it becomes predominant, we act like we are so surprised. But these things, they're happening in our lives now. There are things that are coming that we have an inner awareness of, but because we don't appreciate awareness, we avoid and we act like things are not happening, but they are. When it overwhelms us is when we start to pay attention. And so things are turning now, Jacquees, right? Things are turning. We've got to deal with our children differently. We've got to educate them differently. We've got to cater to things that they may not have ever paid attention to or experienced. And that's no fault to anybody. It's just what we have been relegated to deal with today. And so I want to encourage you again to really, all of us, to really consider having a change mindset, which is also considered a growth mindset, growing and changing and evolving so that we can accommodate the day that we're in and the day that we're coming into so that we won't be stuck. We can't be stuck. We have to develop an independent mindset, an ability to be okay with and in ourselves, and then expect to connect in a healthy interdependence that is mutual, that feeds us as we feed it, and we continue to move forward. We have to have it. And so I appreciate you sharing that statement of grieving your family and societal expectations, because it takes a strong mind to be able to fight that. And I'm sure that that was difficult. I'm sure that it was difficult because it's not always understood. Well, why can't you do it the way that it was done for you? Well, because things are different for this one than they were for me. And I've got to move with that. I've got to move with this change. I've got to accommodate what I'm dealing with now. So I commend you for walking that out and continuing to walk that out. Yeah, we'll stop there. Hopefully you've gotten some good feedback from this particular conversation or this exchange. If you were in the chats and you were conversational, thank you. I really appreciate the feedback. I really appreciate it. If you need more content, please share them. Please share them in the chat so that we can add some more conversation to it, conversation to this and other things. If you need work on that healthy independence, let us know. So that we could do some work or refer you regarding that work. We have a lot of individuals that have codependency. Listen to those statements, codependencies that say, okay, well, I can't live without you. I won't exist if mama is gone. My life will be over if this changes. Those codependencies, I exist because of this. Codependency, individuals that we understand that have codependency tendencies, you know what those characteristics look like? Lack of self-esteem, lack of self-accountability, lack of the ability to follow through with anything, a lot of frustration, anger, bitterness, all because they have an anxiety around having to do things in and of themselves, anxiety or fear. And a lot of that can be normal based on people's backdrop, history, experiences. But there is a way to help individuals cope and learn another way. That's healthy independence that leads us into healthy interdependence. So thank you for sharing. If you desire, again, to continue to help us bring more content to this conversation or to other conversations, donate to the CoachShe brand through Cash App. We are a nonprofit, tax-exempt organization. All of your contributions are tax deductible, and we would appreciate it as we continue to bring more stuff your way. Thanks for joining us today. And whenever you see this video, share your feedback. We'd love to hear it so that we could do some additional things in order to serve our community. Thanks again for this time. Have a wonderful, wonderful upcoming holiday. Hanukkah's coming, if we're not in it already. Christmas is coming, and Kwanzaa is coming. And then we're into the new year. So we've got a whole plethora of holidays that people are celebrating in this week. So whatever holiday you are celebrating, enjoy that. Share that with family and friends. I hope that you have a great experience. And for those of you who are having a hard time during this holiday, I pray for you. And my prayer towards you is that your heart and your soul would be lifted, that you will be able to get through this experience, whether it is due to grief or just having some off feelings because of what the holiday brings. My prayer towards you is that you would not isolate, and as much as you can handle spending time with people that you love, that can serve you during this time, that can encourage you during this time. Be lifted. Be lifted as much as you can handle. Be kind to yourself as much as you can handle. Be kind to yourself. And be honest. If you want to do something and you necessarily can't, be honest with yourself. Do what you can in order to help you get through this holiday season. So be encouraged with that. And we will check you all out again next time. Listen, check out this last slide, and then we will end this session for the evening.